Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
It's Friday. Sunday's on its way here. Another week, another great week of football. Week 4. Great stuff. Welcome on to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon on the other side of the screen. What's poppin', Rick?
What's going on?
Nothing much. Just shooting the breeze.
Gonna enjoy the weekend?
Yeah, dude. I'm ready for a long, luxurious weekend of sleep. Maybe I should have waited to get my COVID shot on Friday night.
Yeah, but then I was gonna say then you can't enjoy your weekend, but if you're just gonna lay down all weekend, then you could still enjoy it.
That's totally fair.
Yeah.
But anyway, today we got trade targets for week 4. I know it's Friday. Last thing you want to do is listen to a 40-minute podcast. So we're going to try to get you in and out the door as fast as humanly possible, and get this week going. So before we do that, check our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, any social media platforms. Please find us. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or other podcast platforms, leave a review, share this podcast with your friends. If you're listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and then comment down below a player that you are targeting this week for trades. I think in the home league so far, I've made a trade every week.
I don't think I've made one yet.
Yeah, you made one.
Oh, I made one. I did make one.
You did make one. You made one trade. So I'm just killing it. Just Trader Danny over here.
You are a trader, Danny.
So let's jump into our trade targets for week 4. What say you, boss?
Let's do it then.
All right. So number 1 on this list is Jonathan Taylor. JT he's been both one of our favorite running backs, is what I should say. Yeah. But he started off the season slow. Now, in the offseason, I kind of had a feeling that this team was going to utilize multiple running backs. Obviously, they have Nyheim Hines in the passing game who they want to use.
Yep.
But I was concerned more or less about Marlon Mack coming in. Now, there's rumors about Mack being traded. I think he's been active over the last couple weeks. So I feel like at this point, Marlon Mack out of the conversation altogether. Hines is still in the conversation, and he was in the conversation last year, and Jonathan Taylor was able to still be what was it, top 6-7 running back in fantasy football in the season. But he started off the season relatively similar, where he had 11, 18, 12, 8, 14, 13. So it was and then he went after that was 4 and 8 against Baltimore and Detroit and had some tough games. He had a 4-point game against Tennessee. So, there were stretches of time where Jonathan Taylor last season had some tough games. He had 14 points this week, 5 against Los Angeles, 7 against Tennessee. And I think the difference between week 1 and weeks 2 and 3 are the fact that he had 6 catches in week 1 and just a total of 2 catches over the last 2 weeks. The other area that he has been struggling in is touchdown upside, or not touchdown upside, but just straight up a touchdown efficiency. Now, the big thing about JT that people need to realize is that he is getting a poop ton. It's a weird phrase. But he's getting a lot of red zone opportunities. He had, I think, a couple weeks ago, he had 2-3 goal line carries, and he was stuffed at the goal line both times. And so he wasn't able to get it in. But if he's getting the goal line opportunity, it's not going to Hines. It's not going to Marlon Mack. It's not going to go to the quarterback, Carson Wentz. It's going to go to Jonathan Taylor. And at some point, the guy's going to start hitting pay dirt eventually. Especially when you're getting into the red zone and you're giving the running back 2 to 3 goal line opportunities per game. So it's he'll get the touchdowns. They'll come. And I think what you've seen from him efficiency-wise on the season has not been bad. He's averaging somewhere around 4.5 yards a carry, I would say.
Yeah.
Or 4 yards a carry. So he hasn't been horribly inefficient, but he's got
First
Miami.
2 weeks, though, was 3, and then last week, 6.5.
Yeah, so, But against Miami coming up, Houston, you got the Jets, Jacksonville. There's some harder games in between with San Francisco and Tennessee and Baltimore, but there's some opportunities for Jonathan Taylor to have some really great weeks. With that being said, I think that Jonathan Taylor is a perfect opportune buy, similar to how Saquon was last week. I think we've already had Jonathan Taylor on this list once, but he's in a situation where, coming off 5 and 7 points, people are disappointed and they drafted him in the first round. You might still have to pay a little bit of extra capital to get him, but I think it's worth it in the long run because I think without the presence of Marlon Mack and some other running backs in that room, it opens the door for Jonathan Taylor to start producing at a higher level. And when he starts converting on those touchdown opportunities, all bets are off and you're not going to be able to trade for him anymore. So now's the time.
His lowest snap percentage game was in week 2, which is the only game that Marlon Mack was active in. He had like 5 carries and like a 27% snap percentage in that game, which is not a lot, but it's still taking away carries from Jonathan Taylor. Last week, I think, was a lot of game script. The team was down the entire game, so they were just leaving Hines in there, their third down back, and we're passing the ball a lot. But I don't think that's going to continue all season. I think they know that they need to get Taylor involved. He hasn't had a 60% snap percentage yet this season. That's not going to stay the whole year. Like, he's not going to stay under 50% or around 50% all season. He's going to get games where that gets up to 60, 70, maybe even 80%. Right. They're going to use Hines, so it's never going to be a full workhorse type of thing, Dalvin Cook or McCaffrey sort of. But he's gonna get enough where he's going to really start producing. 10 carries last week with 6.4 yards per carry. They're going to start using him more. And once they do, it's going to be all good things for Taylor. Like you said, the touchdowns, he does not have a touchdown yet this season. That won't continue as well. Like you said, he's getting the goal line work. The game where he got the most goal line work was against the Rams, of course, unfortunately for him, and he got shut down.
Aaron Darnold in that
but it was against the Rams, right? So you give him that kind of opportunity against the Texans, the Jets, the Jaguars,
right?
The
Miami,
right? So like he's gonna put it in there.
Yeah,
he's gonna start playing well.
And the other interesting thing that I would like to note is, against Seattle week 1, he did have a good game, but they were down a lot in that game to the Seahawks. So they were at negative game script there. They were losing to the Titans. That game looks a lot closer, but I think it was a lot further off.
They were losing the entire game.
Yeah. So it was kind of like a negative game script again, bad game script for Jonathan Taylor. And I don't want to say he's game script dependent, but with Hines there, it's just like if they're passing the whole game, Taylor's not going to get opportunities. He might come in for a few pass catching downs, but he's not going to get massive opportunity. Which
is why we didn't want to draft him like 6th overall, like everybody else.
Right, exactly. Like 10 to 12 is probably a safer bet, and he's not even providing that. What is it? That like turnaround or comeback. So anyway, but they played the Rams and they lost 27-24. So I would assume that's a game where they were playing from behind as well. So it's just been tough. Miami, definitely a game that they can get the ball going on the ground with Jonathan Taylor. I think against Baltimore, it's going to be a lot tougher. Their offense is good, but we'll see. And then obviously they got Houston October 17th. So some good performances. You just got to watch out because as soon as he has a really good game, the value of him is going to go back to first round, 6th overall. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You have to get him while the irons are hot.
Which that could end after this week.
Exactly. Number 2 is Allen Robinson. Now, this one's a little more scary because the Bears have nothing.
Yeah.
They don't even know who they're starting a quarterback. I would find it stupid for them not. You have the future. Just start the future. Like, what are you doing? Matt Nagy's a brick. Well, Bears fans.
After last week,
Bears fans, find Nagy's house and just sit outside at 24/7 chanting, "We want Fields."
Yeah, I think that's what they were doing. But then after this week, there's some people that don't think he's ready to start, and now it's just causing even more chaos.
I mean, they didn't try to do anything to help him.
No.
They were horrible play calls. Their offensive line was a sieve.
Yeah. That was like Jets level bad, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it was horrible. But either way, if Dalton was here, which I never thought I would say, I feel like the wide receiver position. How many weeks is he out?
He could play this week.
Oh, okay, Matt Nagy. What a clown.
Right. That's what he said. Matt Nagy said in his press conference, all 3 quarterbacks have a chance to play this week. Like, what is he doing? I don't know.
Anyway, so the quarterback situation is kind of murky in Detroit. And so far this year, Allen Robinson has had a tough go about it. 6, 9, and 3. For being one of the most consistent and best route runners in the league, and one of the most consistent fantasy producers, I think, over the last couple years. It's not good to see. I hate that this guy is still a Bear. It's ridiculous. If he went anywhere else, literally anywhere, he could go to New England and have a better opportunity. Like,
yeah.
It's I don't know. I don't know why he still wants to be on the Bears. Matt Nagy's a joke. The organization is a joke. Like, I don't know. Anyway, so, but he's playing Detroit this week, which I would say is an easier matchup. And if they get Andy Dalton back, I feel like the safety blanket for Dalton is going to be Allen Robinson. I still believe in Fields. I think that he can get the ball on a full week of preparation, he can get the ball to Allen Robinson at least 9 to 10 times. But it's just this one's going to be a low end buy. Okay, it's not going to cost you like it might. Who knows? Maybe the owner is like, oh my god, I want Allen Robinson so bad. Derrick Henry is what I'm asking. Okay, that's somebody in your league. Leave a comment and be like, this.
Yeah, I know people like that.
Just shout him out in the chat. Anyway, but Allen Robinson is a buy for me. I think he's going to be cheap with the production that he has put on the field. He's been extremely disappointing. He's going to be a guy that's easy to buy.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. He is for the most part easy to buy unless there's people that are just holding on to him, which there are definitely people out there that are doing that. But if they're trying to get rid of them in their league because of his horrible start, then yeah. He hasn't had 10 points yet in half PPR, which is bad. Obviously, his quarterback play is iffy, but historically speaking, when has Allen Robinson's quarterback play ever been great?
Never.
Exactly. It never has.
Mitch offered upside.
So, like, why does that matter now? I know he's off to a bad start, but last week, again, the whole offense was so bad where it's like nobody was good last week. And he still had 6 targets. Justin Fields threw the ball 20 times. 6 of them went to Allen Robinson. So
a lot of target share going.
If he throws the ball 30 times this week and Allen Robinson gets like 9 targets, he's going to get like 5-6 catches. It's not going to be the same crappy game. And who knows, maybe he even gets a touchdown from Fields. So
yeah,
I think Robinson's going to start playing well, and his schedule next couple weeks are going to get easier. So, and he's got a great playoff schedule. So I would trade for Robinson now while he's absolutely in the gutter and they don't know what they're doing with quarterback.
That's fair. What about the next guy, Rick?
C. Rids. I'm assuming you meant Calvin Ridley?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So Calvin Ridley, that's funny.
I'm lazy. I don't want to type that full name out.
Ridley hasn't even been that bad, but people are saying he's bad because he's not producing huge numbers. That's because usually Calvin Ridley's yards per reception
is much higher.
Is like around like 13, 14. So far this year, it's at like 9 or 8.5, somewhere in that range. So it's not good. Like last week, he had 8 catches for 61 yards. But he had 8 catches. Okay, he's getting the targets. He had 8, 10, and 11 targets. He's getting wide receiver 1 targets. He'll be fine. He's just got to have some more bigger plays, which will come.
Right.
Consistently getting more touchdowns, which Calvin Ridley has always done that, even with Julio there. But yeah, he hasn't even been bad. He's actually been pretty good. But people are treating him like a wide receiver too.
I think the expectation was he was getting drafted basically top 5 or 6, and he's not turning around those top 5 or 6 numbers. It's similar to like last year with Clyde. He was getting drafted top 5 or 6 at the beginning of the, and he didn't return that value. He was a RB1, but he did not return the value of an RB1 from the draft spot. So I think this is similar to Calvin Ridley, where, if you drafted him as wide receiver 5 or 6, you expected him to be this big time wide receiver 1, similar to that of like, Hopkins or Who's wide receiver 1 right now? Freaking Cooper Kupp. Yikes.
Yeah, it's Kupp.
But anyway, similar to the guys at the top of the rankings.
Devontae Adams.
Devontae Adams, some people like that. And he hasn't performed like that. And I think it's definitely touchdowns. Like that's kind of what's holding him back in his efficiency, like Rick said, is not been there. And I think that just comes as a whole to this is a new operation here offensively for the Atlanta Falcons. They brought in Arthur Smith from Tennessee. Wow, I almost forgot.
Mm-hmm.
I almost forgot where he came from. But they brought in Arthur Smith from Tennessee, and I said that they were going to throw it less. They have, sort of, only because they're losing every single game they play. But I thought that they were definitely going to have an opportunity to, run the ball more and not throw the ball as much. And we have kind of seen that. It's been a very significant decrease, making it so that guys like Kyle Pitts aren't getting opportunities. But that has not affected Calvin Ridley because Julio Jones is not there anymore. So it's like he has to get whatever passing targets that they have in the offense. He's the most experienced receiver. So while that's fantastic for Calvin Ridley, the efficiency of the offense has not been there. And the offense itself is not moving the ball down the field. They're not getting into the red zone. They're not scoring a lot of points like they normally do. And I hope that Matt Ryan and Arthur Smith sit down and figure this freaking thing out so that we can start getting some scoring from the Atlanta Falcons offense and Calvin Ridley can come back. But if that doesn't happen, then the expectation for Calvin Ridley is going to be more like what Allen Robinson put up last year, which is low-end wide receiver 1 numbers, or high-end wide receiver 2 numbers. So the expectation on Calvin Ridley needs to change with the reality of what their offense is. But I would say Calvin Ridley is definitely worth a buy if you can get him for a wide receiver 2 high-end value. I don't know if you're going to be able to pull that off because he was a top 5 pick at the wide receiver position, not overall. But I would definitely at least shoot a message to the person who has him on their team and see what they're willing to do. And it's a deal. You never know. Like this year, for some reason, I just text people and deals come walking. So
for you,
I don't know. Everyone usually outs me on trades.
Yeah, not this year.
Not this year. Just walking up and taking the bank.
Yeah, no. Unlike me.
You're like, I'm at work. I can't even look at my messages. Is that it? Is that really?
And then I get home, I look, and I see Morgan made 8 trades. All for the players I wanted.
But anyway, yeah, buy Calvin Ridley. Did you already talk about Ridley? Because I forgot.
I did, yeah.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the next guy. Number 4, Brandon Ayuk. And Brandon Ayuk is starting to get a little bit more opportunity. This hamstring injury that they were talking about over there in San Fran is starting to become less of a situation, if you will. But early in the season, we're still early in the season, but in the first couple weeks of the season, he was not getting opportunity. He played 47% of the snaps week 1, didn't get a target. He played 54 week 2, and had 2 targets, 1 catch, and then 1 fantasy point. This week, he played 86% of the snaps, 6 targets, 4 catches, 37 yards, and a touchdown. He had 12 fantasy points against Green Bay. If you look at this schedule on Sleeper right now, if all of these defenses hold in what their actual value is, the 3 toughest matchups that Ayuk is going to have on the season, he just played them.
Wow.
He has Seattle, Arizona, Indianapolis, Chicago, Arizona, Los Angeles, Jacksonville, Minnesota, Seattle, Cincinnati, Atlanta, Tennessee, Houston. There's like 3 bad matchups there.
He doesn't play the Rams either. He plays them once in week 10, but then he only has to play them once because the week 18 game is at LA.
That's crazy.
He needs to avoid them. Yeah, he's got a really great rest of the season schedule. I like Ayuk a lot. And I think the first 2 weeks did really scare me because it's like, what are they doing with the 49ers? And you never know with Kyle Shanahan. But last week, his snap percentage was pretty much normal. He had 6 targets, had a touchdown. It feels like he's back. And now he gets to play Seattle, Arizona, the Colts, like you were saying. The Bears is kind of tough. Arizona again. They have 1 game against the Rams, but then he's got Jacksonville, Minnesota, Seahawks again, the Bengals, the Falcons, the Titans, the Texans. That run of the last 6 games is all easy matchups for Brandon Ayuk. he could be someone who wins people. He's a league winner, honestly. It could potentially be that in the second half of the season. So
I agree.
Yeah, go get Brandon Ayuk on your team.
Yeah, I think this is. It was less about, because you see the 47% snap percentage in week 1, and you're like, oh yeah, he's on the field. He has, should have had opportunity, and they just weren't using him. Like, he was on the field, but he was on the field for run plays, and it wasn't really a situation for him to. They didn't want him really to have success. I don't think. I think they wanted to put him in the doghouse.
They weren't using him.
Yeah. So it was they just weren't using him. Week 2, we got a little bit more opportunity. This week, I think he started to get a little bit more healthy. And, he had that 12 fantasy points. So if the snap percentage keeps going up and the opportunity share keeps going up, I think Brandon Ayuk, and I definitely think that's going to happen because I think he's better than Debo, and I think he's better than anything else they have on that team receiver-wise. So I think Ayuk will take the number 1 wide receiver slot this season, and with that easy schedule, when that happens, that transition happens, it's all bets are all bets are off essentially for Brandon Ayuk, and he's going to end up being really, really good. So it's worth going out there. He's cheap as dirt right now. Like, he could be a steal for you in your league. Everyone's going to look at you and send the poop emoji when you trade somebody for him. But definitely get Brandon Ayuk on your team. Let's close it out with number 5 and the final guy, Deandre Swift. We all know this one's going to cost a little bit of capital. It's going to cost you some money. It's going to cost you some fob. Whatever you need to throw at the guy. Okay? It's going to cost you. He's been really, really good. In half PPR, he had 20 fantasy points week 1, 9.5 to 10 fantasy points week 2, and it was against Green Bay where he should have had 20, 25, but Brickhead, Dan Campbell, literally decided that Jamal Williams had to get a touchdown. He didn't score one, by the way, so he could do a Lambeau leap in Lambeau Field. Because he used to play there, and I'm like, damn.
Against his former team in the revenge game on Monday night.
If I was a coach, I would have just been like, Swift, get out there. Like, who cares about Jamal Williams? But, like, freaking A, dude. He was, like, trying to get Jamal this big game. Jamal blew. So, anyway, Swift is a fantastic running back. Like, when you watch him and then you watch Jamal Williams has some great runs. He's really good as a role player. But Swift is clearly the most talented running back in the backfield. And I was hoping that at some point, Detroit, because he hasn't really had a heavy workload. He had 68, 63, and 56% snap percentage so far in the last couple weeks. And it's like he's basically averaging at this point 60% snap percentage, which I would like to see it at 75, as a workhorse running back. He's been getting like an average of like 10 carries a game. But this is very similar. I told you in the offseason, this is going to be a very similar situation to that of Alvin Kamara, right?
Yeah.
Where he has never, if you go look at his number, he has never had over 200 rushing attempts in a season. Yeah. Or you see some of these.
This might be the year, though.
This might be the year because they don't have anyone else. But you look at the top running backs like Dalvin Cook, Ezekiel Elliott, some of these guys. Those guys clearly are, they get pass catching opportunities, but they're heavily predicated on the running action of the running back position. So it's like 250. Sometimes Derrick Henry with 300 plus carries. Those guys get opportunities. Swift don't get that. But what he does get is target share. So far this year, he has over 23 targets, I think. 23 or 24 targets on the season through 3 games. He's like pacing at ridiculous. Like wide receiver target share numbers. So he might get literally, I would hope, if he gets 120 targets, he's going to walk away with 100 catches. Which is absurd.
And if he does that, he's literally Kamara 2.0. Because Kamara and McCaffrey are the only 2 players in the league that can put up even close to those kind of receiving numbers. And Deandre Swift, I think, is the new version of that.
And Rick, I have a quick question to ask you. Is Detroit going to be blowing people out?
No.
No, they're going to be playing from behind a lot.
No. Yes. Yep. They're going to be playing from behind all season.
Yeah. And we also got a report the other day that Dan Campbell is deciding that they need to get Swift more involved.
I hope so. I don't know if that's actually what they're going to do, but I would hope so, yeah.
Makes me kind of nervous because I feel like he's going to get hurt, but we'll see. But anyway. No, but I feel like the pass catching opportunity is something that he's going to be able to walk all over, and he's always going to have that. Jamal Williams will take some pass catching opportunities, but this offense really needs to run through Swift and it needs to run through Hawkinson. And that's, they don't have a receiver that's really talented on their team. And they have a good offensive line. And I think what they need to do is use their talented players to win football games. I know you like Jamal Williams. I know you like to get him out there and put him out there in situations where you're like 3rd and short and need a play. But at this point, you don't need to keep Swift off the field. He's too good. I mean, I've seen him juke over a defender twice this year in 3 games.
Yeah, which is
not juke, jump over a defender, I should say.
Yeah, he made one move too this past week where he faked right and went left, and he just broke a guy's ankles so well, and he exploded off the move. And I was like, okay, that's Swift I saw last year, because I remember in week 1 he had a good game fantasy wise and was pretty decent, but I thought he looked a little slower than he did. But like last week, he looked really explosive, I thought, in the last few weeks.
And I mean, when you talk about the first 4 weeks of the season, too, this is where the big parts of Swift's fantasy production has been ridiculous. San Francisco's given up a lot of fantasy points to the running back position so far this year, but they're still San Francisco and they're still a good defense. I don't know if Robert Saleh leaving has any effect on this, but
they've been fine though.
They've been fine. Green Bay, I would think they're supposed to be an easy matchup, but they've been good run stopping. He had Baltimore, which is a good defense. Chicago this week, so that's going to be a tougher matchup. And then he's got Minnesota, Cincinnati, Los Angeles, tough matchup. Philly, tough matchup. Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Chicago, tough matchups. And then finally it gets easier. Minnesota, Denver, Arizona, Atlanta, Seattle to end the season. So he does have some tougher matchups. But if he's doing really well against tough matchups already,
doesn't matter,
yeah, it doesn't really matter. And I think it's because of his pass catching upside.
That's exactly what it is, yeah.
So we're definitely going to have to see where it goes. But right now, the whole point of this is right now, to me, this is your last opportunity to get Swift before people start treating him as a top 5 running back. Because if he keeps having these performances, like the next 2 weeks, if he puts up 20, 2 straight weeks, or 3 straight weeks, I should say, people are going to look at Swift and be like, okay, he is a Kamara-like player right now. He's going to be a top 10 running back. And it's going to get, every single week he has a good game, it's going to get harder and harder and harder to trade for him. So as of right now, if you want to get Swift on your team, you have to do it right now. Because if you don't do it now, it's over. Like, you're not getting him. That person's going to hold on to him like it's gold. Like when you draft, like when I draft Dalvin Cook, I go, okay, I love Dalvin Cook. Know what he is. You spent your first round pick on him. You're like, okay, but I'm willing to trade him. I don't know. Am I the only person that's willing to trade my big star running backs?
Maybe, because I don't really want to trade McCaffrey.
But anyway, when you hit on guys like Deandre Swift, where you draft him in the second or third round, it's different. You're like, oh my God, I hit on this guy. I had this right. And you feel like you had some kind of vindication over people. And it's hard to get that off a person's team. If he starts going off, it's going to get even harder. So this is it. If you want to try to make a trade for Swift, do it now.
Yeah. No, I agree. Go get him.
Okay.
Go get him.
You have any other thoughts on Swift, or we'll send this off?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, there we go. Trade targets for week 4. JT, Allen Robinson, Brandon Ayuk, Deandre Swift. A little extra in here. We were going to say Joe Mixon, but it's past Thursday, so go after Joe Mixon if you want to. Anyway, enjoy your Sunday football. We'll talk to you on Tuesday for waiver wire targets.
See you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.